Hello, this is Sarah with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this festive and fun cupcake hat, perfect for a birthday or just to wear anytime you want to. Now, this is a very unique pattern in that we're going to be using two types of yarn. The top part of this hat is made in a chunky number 5. Part that looks like the cupcake paper portion is done with a worsted weight number 4. And then we also have a pom-pom that we're going to be doing out of a worsted weight number 4. Now, you're also going to be needing 2 crochet hooks. For the top portion of our hat, we're going to be using a J hook. And then for the bottom portion of the hat, we're going to be using an H hook. So you need an H and a J for this hat. Now, to talk about yarn, this particular yarn here that I used for this one is the Deborah Norville, I almost said Vanna's Choice, Deborah Norville Serenity Sprinkles. It's a chunky number 5. If you cannot find this yarn, I've got a couple of options for you. You can also use this, and this makes a really nice one, and we're going to be using this yarn today just so you can see how it works up. And this is at Hobby Lobby. It's Yarn Bee. Let's see, it's called LA Cool. It's got like a fuzziness to it. It's really pretty. I was trying to find the color of it. Yeah, LA Cool's the color of it. There's some nice bright colors. And then if you don't have that and you want to just use the Red Heart Fiesta that has the different colored sprinkles in it, you can use 2 strands held together to do the top portion of the hat of this worsted weight number 4. So anyway, you can use any chunky number 5 or any worsted weight holding 2 strands together for the top of the hat. There's lots of options there, but I didn't want you to think you had to use this particular yarn, this Deborah Norville. Even though I really, really like it, it works perfect. There are some other options. Now, for the bottom of the hat, we're just going to use this brownish light beige color so that it resembles the bottom of the cake. And we're going to use this bright pink to make our pom-pom. Now, this pom-pom's really small, and we're going to be making a much bigger pom-pom. And I'll show you how to do that as well. So you're going to need brown and pink or whatever colors you want for your cake. You're going to need, in worsted weight, you're going to need your chunky. You're going to need 2 crochet hooks, your H and your J. You're going to need a needle for weaving in your ends, and of course, a pair of scissors. This pattern is a little bit unique, but it is also lots of fun to make and lots of fun to wear. Now, this is a free pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down below in the notes so that you'll have that. So, gather your supplies, and we'll get started. To begin our cupcake hat, we're going to be starting up here and working our way down. So we're going to start with our chunky number 5 and our J hook. Now, for sizing, this hat will fit about an 18 to 20, maybe 22 inch head, depending on how tight you stitch. I tend to be a looser stitcher, and so my hat's going to have a little more give. Now, if when you're working, you're looking at this and saying this is too big, now remember, once we get the top part done, we're going to switch to an H hook to stitch the bottom part, and that's going to bring that in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to begin with our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, I'm using my chunky number 5 and my J hook. We're going to place a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I yarn over, I go in that chain, pull up a loop. 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. So our chain 3 counted as our first double crochet. Now we have a second double crochet, and we need to stitch 8 more double crochets in that same chain so that we have a total of 10 double crochets for row 1. Now I have noticed with this particular yarn that this thread going through does like to get a little bit caught, So I'm going to have to keep my eye on that. Alrighty, let's do one more and do a count. Alright, so here's our chain. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need 2 more for a total of 10. 1 and 2. So we have 10 double crochets in that fourth chain from the hook. Now our first 3 chains counted as our first double crochet. So we're going to join in the top of that third chain with a slip stitch, and we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. On this row, those 4 chains count as a chain 3 and a double crochet and a chain 1. The first 3 chains count as 1 double crochet, and then the chain 1 is a chain 1, because on our second row we're going to be doing 1 double crochet in the next stitch and then a chain 1. 1 double crochet in the next stitch and then a chain 1. And we'll do this all the way around, and we'll have 10 double crochets and 10 chain 1 spaces. And the chain 1 space is the space that is created when you chain 1 between the stitches. So we're placing 1 double crochet in each double crochet and then chain 1. I like to use the method of the chain 1 in between, because when you're working with a chunkier yarn, especially one that has these little hairs or flecks, it's easier to find your stitches. And I'll show you that when we get to the third row. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We did our last chain 1, and so now we're going to join to the top of the third chain, not the fourth, but the third, because that next one, that fourth chain, counts as a chain 1. All right. So this is what your hat looks like at this point. You've got 10 double crochets on your first row and then 10 chain 1, 10 of those on your second row. Now, beginning in the third row, we're going to be not working in the stitches, but working in these chain 1 spaces. And that's what I was talking about, that it makes it easier to find your stitches when we work in the chain 1 spaces, opposed to trying to find, especially with some of these hairy yarns that have hair or flecks like the other one. So what we're going to do is we're going to play, we chained 3, we're going to chain 4, and then in this next chain 1 space, we're going to double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in the same chain 1 space, and then chain 1, like this. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. And we'll do that in every one of the chain 1 spaces going all the way around. So in this next chain 1 space, we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. So the next chain 1 space, we're going to double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. And you can see that's really making it flare out there, because now we're putting twice the stitches. And so for this row, you're going to end up having 20 double crochets and 20 chain 1 spaces. So we'll continue this all the way around, working in the chain 1 spaces. 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet, chain 1, working all the way around this row. So this is how your hat should look after your first 3 rows. And from here on out, for the top part of the hat, we will be working in the chain 1 spaces. So what we're going to do for row 4 is we're going to go in the first chain 1 space, and we're going to stitch a double crochet and a chain 1. Then in the next stitch, we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. So we're going to be alternating all the way around the hat in working in all these chain 1 spaces, double crochet, chain 1 in the next stitch, and then double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 in the next stitch. So we're alternating back and forth. So this next chain 1 space, I'm going to put a double crochet, chain 1. Then in the next chain 1 space, I'm going to put a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. And this is going to cause our hat to flare out quite a bit more because we want the top of the hat to be a little bit poochy so that it looks like a cupcake. So the next chain 1 space, and I have found that as I'm working around, if I do that, stick my finger in there, it makes it really easy to find those chain 1 spaces. So here's my chain 1 space. I'm just going to place a double crochet, chain 1. Now my next chain 1 space, I'm going to place double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. And we'll do this all the way around for row 4, and then we'll join in the top of our chain 3. So here's our first 4 rows completed. I joined to the top of the chain 3, and then I chained 4. Now row 5 is similar to row 3, only we're going to do 2 individual double crochets and then do 2 together. So we've got our chain 3 and our chain 1, which is chain 4. The first 3 counts as our first double crochet and a chain 1. So we're going to go in the next chain 1 space, double crochet, chain 1. Then we'll go in the next chain 1 space, double crochet, chain 1. And then the next one we'll do 2 double crochets with a chain 1 in between. There we go. So the rotation will be, or the repeat will be, 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 in the next. So we're doing 2 double crochets by themselves with the chain 1, and then the double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the next. And we'll repeat this around. So the next chain 1 space, I'm doing a double crochet. There we go, chain 1. The next chain 1 space, I'm doing a double crochet, chain 1, and then the next chain 1 space, I'm doing double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, and of course chain 1. And this is our last repeat row, or our last increase row. So we'll increase all the way around, and again we'll join to the top of our chain 3. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and chain 1 all the way around our hat. So this is what your hat should look like after your 5th row. It looks kind of flat, but don't worry about it. We're going to fix that on this row. No more increases. So what we'll be doing, we chained 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go double crochet, chain 1 in every single chain 1 space around the hat. So there's our chain 1 space, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. So our hat's not going to get any bigger. Now, something that you can do if you want to size this hat is you can measure out to see how wide you want it. If you're making it for a smaller child, you can do less rows of increase. And if you're making it this, because this hat will fit a youth to adult. And at this point, we're not increasing anymore. We're just going to start making the rows on the side of the hat to come down. We're just placing 1 double crochet, chain 1 in each of the chain 1 spaces, because remember, we're stitching in the chain 1 spaces, not the stitches, and we'll continue to stitch in the chain 1 spaces until we reach the bottom of the hat where we put the band on. So 1 double crochet in the chain 1 space and chain 1, 1 double crochet in the chain 1 space and chain 1 all the way around, then we'll join to the top of our chain 3 again. So you can see the hat is starting to come in some because we're not doing any more increases. And for the next 6 to 8 rows, depending on how long you want your hat to be, we're going to continue to do what we did for row 6. We're going to chain 4, because it counts as a double crochet, chain 1, and we're just going to place 1 double crochet, chain 1 in each chain 1 space around. And what we're doing here is we're coming down the sides of our hat where we started up here, we increased out, and now we're coming down the side of the hat. And if you have a bigger head and you want a longer hat, you can do 8 rows. If you want to have a shorter head, you can do 5 or 6. For the pattern, it calls for you to do 8 additional rows. So we're going to be doing double crochet, chain 1 in each stitch around for 8 additional rows. So I ended up only doing 6 additional rows because this yarn was working up quite a bit thicker than this one. And when I put them up against each other, I noticed that if I went ahead and did 2 more rows, it would be too long. And I really like the way this ended up sort of color pooling too. Isn't that pretty? The way it kind of swirled around. I really like that. All right, so at this point, if you're using this yarn here, which is this Soft Illusions Yarn Bee, you're not going to want to do 8 rows. You're only going to want to do the 6 additional rows, unless you have a longer head and you want it to be bigger. So I'm going to cut my yarn, and I have very little left of this, so I don't know that I could have gotten 2 more rows out of it. Now this is the tricky part. It's not hard, don't panic. We're going to be switching to our H hook. And then we're going to join in our brown. Snug that down. Now I do stitch over my ends, but I also come back with my needle and make sure they're weaved in nice and tight. We're going to chain 1. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch around. Now we want to make sure we get all the double crochets and the chain 1s that are in between. So you can hold your yarns over if you want to, or you can weave them in. We'll go in that first stitch and we'll stitch a single crochet. Now we switch to the smaller hook because we want to pull that hat in order to make it look like a cupcake. There we go. I've stitched over those a little bit, but I'm just going to set those strings aside, and I'm going to come back in and weave those in later. All right, so we're going to go in each stitch in our double crochets and our single crochets. We're going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch around. And the reason we're doing a single crochet here is we're just setting it in place, making a foundation for the bottom portion of the hat, or the hat band. And this furry yarn is a little tricky. Those little hairs want to get caught, but I will persevere. Alrighty, so I'm placing 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and you can see how that's pulling that in, because we want that hat to pull in so that it looks like a cupcake. So 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, and then we'll join to that first single crochet. Now we want our hat to come in even more so that it has this appearance of the cupcake papers. So what we're going to do is we're going to be stitching double crochets. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that counts as our first double crochet. Then we're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Then we're going to stitch these next 2 double crochets together. And the way we do that is we yarn over, we go in that next stitch and pull up a loop. Then we go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. You'll yarn over, go through the first 3, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And that made 2 stitches into 1 stitch. And we're going to do this all the way around, stitching 1, 2, 3 double crochets, and then the next stitch we'll stitch the double crochets together. And this is just going to make the hat fit better, and it's also going to make the hat come in a little bit so that it looks like the cupcake papers around a cupcake. So we're going to stitch 3 individual double crochets, and then we'll stitch what's called a double crochet decrease, or stitching 2 double crochets together. 1, 2, 3, then we'll stitch the next double crochet together. And we'll do this all the way around our hat band and join to the top of our chain 3. So this next row, we're going to be stitching 2 double crochets and then a front post double crochet, and repeat that around the hat. And this is going to give us a little bit of an appearance of what the cupcake paper looks like around a cupcake. And the way we do that is I've joined to the top of my chain 3, and I chained 3. So I'm going to double crochet in the next double crochet. And now I'm going to do a front post double crochet. The post portion of your stitch is the part that's down here. We normally stitch across the top of our stitches, but we're going to stitch around the post. And the way we do that, we're going to yarn over because we're stitching a double crochet, and we're going to go around the post of the stitch. We're going to yarn over and pull that loop through, and then just complete the double crochet. And we'll do this all the way around. We'll stitch 1, 2 double crochets, and then we'll stitch a front post double crochet. And like I said, that's going to give us the appearance of that cupcake paper around our hat. And we'll repeat this all the way around, stitching 2 double crochets and a front post double crochet. Now, just a little note about keeping track. If you get confused because you're stitching around the post and not on the top, make sure to count that you have 2 double crochets between each of your front post stitches. Sometimes when you stitch in the front post, you're not sure where your next stitch is, and so make sure there's 1 and 2. And because you stitched up here, you think, I need to go around this one. But count 1, 2, and go around that third front post. Just a little help to keep you on track. So we'll stitch 2 double crochets and then a front post double crochet all the way around the hat and join to the top of the chain 3. So I completed my first row of my 2 double crochets and a front post double crochet all the way around, and for the next 3 rows we're going to be just repeating what we just did. So here's my chain 3, 1 double crochet in the next double crochet, and then we're going to go around and stitch around that front post again. The nice thing about once we've established where our front posts are, they're a lot easier to find. And so we're going to stitch 3 rows of 2 double crochets and a front post double crochet around our hat, and that, like I said, it's going to give us that look. And here's the one on here that you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4 rows with 2 double crochets and a front post double crochet. And we'll do that for 3 more rows. We'll join and then we'll tie off, and then all it'll need is a pom-pom. So I've got my 4 rows done, 2 double crochets with the front post in between and for 4 rows. And now I'm going to tie off, and I'm going to just put my hook behind, pull that loop, and then tie off to the back. Helps hide that stitch. And I'm just going to pull that up. I'm going to use my needle and weave that in later, but for now I'm just going to pull that up. So I'm going to show you how I make a nice big pom-pom using an embroidery hoop. The first thing you need to do is cut off a nice long piece of the yarn that you're using, about 16, 18, maybe 24 inches, just so you have a nice long piece. Then you take your hoop and set it in the center of the table. Put your string across like this. And make sure your edges are on the outside of the hoop and not in the way of where you're going to wrap, because then that will get in the way and be an irritation. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it this way so I can just kind of hold those over to the side. And I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to begin wrapping my yarn around this hoop. Now I normally like to use the wooden hoop because it holds it better. But like I said, I don't have one this size. That knot out of there. And so I'm using the plastic one. And the plastic ones do tend to slide. So you want to make sure you wrap it a little bit tight, but not so tight that it's going to slide. And I usually wrap about 25 to 30 times, depending on the size of the pom-pom I want to make. Squeeze those in together just to keep them going. I'm going to keep wrapping a little more because I want a nice big pom-pom on this hat. Alright, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to cut my yarn. There we go. Just wrap that up there. And then I'm going to take this piece of yarn that I cut off ahead of time, and I'm going to put it through here. And I'm going to tie that nice and tight. My finger on there. Get that through there. There we go. I'm going to tie that nice and tight. Put my thumb down on it. And I always tie it 3 times. So there's 1, 2, 3. So that's on there nice and tight. And so now we're going to cut the sides. So I'm just going to go close to that as I can and make sure you have a nice sharp pair of scissors. So that's one side. I'm going to turn it this way so I can use my same hand. And I'm going to kind of eyeball it to make sure I cut it about the same. And it's okay if you don't, because we're going to trim it up. Okay, so there's that. Move my hoop out of the way and get some of these strings out of the way, although I am going to make a bunch more strings. Okay, so then I give it a good shake. I take my hand and I go like this, and then I just start trimming. Go around the edges, make sure the edges are trimmed, and then I get another good shake. And I like floppy pom-poms. Some people like them a lot tighter. The more yarn that you put on, the thicker your pom-pom will be and the less floppy it will be. All right. So that's a nice size pom-pom, and I like that. And we'll have to clean up those fuzz pieces in a minute. All right, so let's put this pom-pom on our hat. We're just going to take our hook, and we're going to go right up here to the top. And don't go in the hole. Go to the side of the hole and grab one of those long strings and pull it inside. Then we're going to go right to the other side of the hole and pull that other string inside. Now we're going to go inside the hat. And here are those two strings that we just pulled in, and we're going to snug that on tight. 1, 2, 3, and then I take it and I do this kind of a tie. I wrap it around because I do not want my pom-pom coming off, and then I do another one. There we go. Looks like we got 2 strings there to clip. I said chip, to clip. And there's our cupcake hat. Isn't that so much fun? And this one has a much bigger pom-pom.